Hi, and welcome to Cloud on Air, live webinars hosted by Google Cloud every Tuesday. My name is Elise Roche, and I work around data for social and environmental impact at Google Cloud. And today I'm here with Jenny Oldfield, Director of Communications from the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. Hi. Today we're here to talk to you a bit about our work, data for good, and how data analytics can be leveraged for social impact. As a quick note, you can ask questions throughout the webinar on the platform, as we do have Googlers on standby to answer them, and we will be hosting a live Q&A at the end of our presentation. With that, let's get started. So before we dive into our work and some of the projects that we're working on specifically, we'd like to rewind a little bit and talk about data for good as a whole. It's interdisciplinary and it's international. It is a movement in the making. Private companies are working with governmental agencies, NGOs, and nonprofits to apply big data solutions to the world's most pressing issues, from conservation to crisis response to preserving biodiversity. Data scientists, analysts, designers, and strategists are actually all coming together to drive real-world impact at scale. And here are just a few highlights from the movement as well. Starting in 2008, Google released an experimental data analytics project called Google Flu Trends, which sought to predict the extent of a flu outbreak based on online searches. So essentially treating searches like flu symptoms or at-home remedies as a proxy for an outbreak in a particular area. In 2011, the UN Global Pulse Initiative introduced the term of data philanthropy to describe a kind of collaboration where private sector companies share data for public benefit. Those who actually have the financial resources and also the infrastructure to collect this data are able to then share it for the public good. And in 2013, the UN demonstrated the potential of satellite imagery to address crisis response, to analyze disaster areas and provide emergency relief by comparing pre- and post-disaster data. So to actually pull up one image and compare it to the next and see who needs the most relief as soon as possible. In 2017, the UN hosted the world's first World Data Forum, where the Statistical Commission agreed that a forum would help to foster cooperation across professional groups in information technology, data science, and civil society. And actually the next one is coming up in October in Dubai. And here we are in 2018 with the creation of interdisciplinary programs that provide nonprofit organizations with integrated solutions, from productivity tools to planetary-scale datasets. Plus, there's a collaboration between Google Cloud and organizations like the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. So, what is Google Cloud doing within this Data for Good movement? So we are looking to empower nonprofits with integrated solutions, from Google Earth outreach and geospatial analysis to G Suite for nonprofits with collaboration and productivity tools, Gcp Public Datasets, which allow really anyone to analyze data up to 1 terabyte per month for free, planetary-scale data, and most recently, Data Solutions for Change, a new program that helps nonprofits achieve their missions at scale with data analytics. So here is a snapshot of our own timeline for nonprofits and social impact. In 2007, we launched the Google Earth Outreach program with the Google Earth team. And Google Maps actually help nonprofits access satellite imagery and APIs. It's also worth noting that the Google Earth team recently announced a partnership with the UN Environment Division, which is quite exciting. In 2011, G Suite for Nonprofits enabled nonprofits to collaborate and innovate together with productivity tools and with free storage. And in 2016, GCP Public Datasets launched in order to democratize access to planetary-scale datasets, which are freely hosted in the cloud. So again, anyone can query these datasets up to 1 terabyte per month for free. And these datasets include data from the World Bank, from the UN Statistics Division, the EPA, the US Department of Health and Human Services, just to name a few. And in 2018, as I mentioned before, we recently launched the Data Solutions for Change, actually just in July at our next conference in San Francisco. And we are looking to empower nonprofits again to achieve their missions at scale with data analytics and with machine learning. We understand that with big data solutions, nonprofits can scale their data to actually analyze data at the scale of the entire web with BigQuery to get to terabytes and petabytes of large-scale data analysis. They can also automate their work and tap into artificial intelligence with cloud machine learning. This is particularly important as this then allows nonprofits and their team members to focus on their core work and on their core mission, as opposed to manually analyzing, whether it's data sets or creating their own models. And they're also able to share their vision to turn data into customizable reports with Google Data Studio. This is particularly important as Google Data Studio directly connects to BigQuery, so they're able to go from that large-scale data analysis to custom and interactive reports in minutes. And in crafting the Data Solutions for Change program, we took into account two key barriers that nonprofits face when trying to complete advanced cloud computing projects. The first one being financial and the second technical. So financial in the sense that it can be difficult to muster up the budget or finance even a short-term data analytics project, never mind a long-term data analytics project. And the second barrier being technical expertise, so actually giving nonprofits the opportunity to learn more about GCP as a whole, and also learn more about data analytics and machine learning specifically. So with the Data Solutions for Change program, we're offering nonprofits the opportunity to apply for a Google Cloud credit grant, which is need-based, self-training resources, which will allow them to develop that knowledge of data warehousing and machine learning with Quick Labs, and also hands-on support. So again, addressing that point on technical expertise and allowing them to get advice on their architecture and also resolve issues with Google Cloud customer support. It's worth noting that Data Solutions for Change is application-based and kind of, it's similar to an accelerator program in the sense that each grant is 6 months. So the grant period has a duration of 6 months. And while we launched this in July of 2018, we've already been working with nonprofit organizations and want to share a few snapshots with you today. So the first one is the Open Agriculture Foundation. They're using BigQuery and IoT Core to create healthier, more engaging, and more inventive food with technology. So they're actually creating these contained environments that they call food computers in order to better understand how to optimize plant production. So to adjust variables like nitrogen levels in the soil or humidity in that contained environment to understand what makes one plant more productive than another, given those variables. And then open sourcing that plant code online to create an engaging food ecosystem. Next is the Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator. They're using BigQuery and machine learning to connect more unemployed youth in South Africa with jobs, taking into account variables like location, where the applicants live in relation to that prospective job. And also there's the Foundation for Precision Medicine. They're using BigQuery and machine learning to detect Alzheimer's early and stop the progression of the disease. This is particularly important because Alzheimer's has no cure, so the Foundation for Precision Medicine is approaching this particular challenge thinking about preventative treatment. So getting ahead of a traditional diagnosis months or even years in advance of when they would usually do so. And then that will allow, again, for that preventative treatment. And with that, would like to actually share a video of the Foundation for Precision Medicine, the work that they're doing and how they're leveraging data analytics and machine learning to achieve their mission at scale.
My name is Robert Tabbs, and 5.5 years ago, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I knew none of the medications were working. The entire time was a downward spiral.
And I also lost my grandfather about 25 years ago to the disease. My family at the time felt like it was already too late to change the trajectory of the disease. And it breaks my heart when I hear the same stories today. The mission for Foundation for Precision Medicine is to bring AI and healthcare together to detect Alzheimer's early.
If you can detect Alzheimer's very early on, that is when the disease is most susceptible to treatment.
The data that we have access to are anonymized electronic healthcare records. We needed a HIPAA-compliant environment, which is why we use Google Cloud.
We're dealing with hundreds of variables on millions of patients, which generate billions of lines of data.
Google Cloud enables us to scale our operations, and with BigQuery ML, we're able to develop machine learning models faster and utilize our entire data. Being a nonprofit, we rely on our volunteers across the US, and Google Cloud really enabled us to do that. We wanted them to be able to apply machine learning on the data and look at trends themselves to empower them to come up with more innovative approaches to change the progression of the disease.
This work is so important to me because it helps us address this devastating illness that has no cure.
I heard somewhere that they said, don't forget that dots on the plot are people. And we really take that seriously.
And that was a snapshot from the Foundation for Precision Medicine, again, who are looking to leverage BigQuery machine learning to detect Alzheimer's early and stop the progression of the disease. And in addition to the nonprofit program that we launched, Data Solutions for Change, we also explored the opportunity to inspire and engage the next generation of data scientists, analysts, and designers. And that is a data storytelling contest called Visualize 2030, Data Stories for the SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, which Jenny will be talking a bit more during her portion of the presentation. So with this contest, we're asking students at the university level, so college or graduate level students, to use Google Data Studio to analyze data sets from the UN Statistics Division and also from the World Bank, which we also migrated to the Gcp Public Datasets program, to tell a data story about how at least 2 of the SDGs influence each other and how we can achieve them by 2030. And this is for the chance to receive a $10,000 cash prize and also announcement and promotion by Google Cloud. And as I mentioned a bit earlier in the presentation on Data for Good and the importance of interdisciplinary partnerships, we're not doing this alone. We are working with the World Bank, with the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, and also the UN Foundation to bring this contest to life. And with the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data specifically, we're actually working with them across both Data Solutions for Change and Visualize 2030. They're soon to be a participant in the nonprofit program, and as I mentioned briefly before, we're working with them with the contest as a whole as a partner. So with that, I'd like to pass it along to Jenny to talk a bit about her work and the projects that they are currently working on.
Hi there, my name's Jenny. I'm the Communications Director at the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. The name is too long, so you see it abbreviated there as GPSDD. So originally, Elle has given you some of the background on how data came to be more integral to the United Nations. But there's a little timeline here on the slides just to go through that. The UN Advisory Group identified data as a major driver for sustainable development. There was a report to the Secretary General in 2014 called A World That Counts that really looked at the different data communities and identified the need to bring them together and identified the need for an organization to help bring those partners together. And therefore we were created, founded in 2015 in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and then launched in New York. So we're an initiative that's housed at the United Nations Foundation, and that's because we really straddle both worlds. We work with UN agencies and we work with all of the different partners across private sector, NGO, governments that are needed to bring change together. So we currently have 320 partners as of today, based all over the world, and as I said, across every sector, working together to achieve social change and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So just to recap on what the Sustainable Development Goals are, they were brought in 2015 and they take us through to 2030, and they replaced the Millennium Development Goals, which were somewhat more simple, but with less ways of measuring them and less comprehensive in terms of climate and resilience. So the first 6 Sustainable Development Goals that you see here are essentially the sort of traditional indicators of development progress. So no poverty, zero hunger, health and well-being, so eliminating diseases, education for all, which there's been an enormous amount of progress on, thankfully, gender equality, and clean water and sanitation, so people having access to clean water. But this expanded number of Sustainable Development Goals really reflects the enormous progress that countries made in agreeing with each other what's important. So the other Sustainable Development Goals, they cover energy, they cover decent work, so not just having enough work to live, but also having decent employment and protected rights, different industries working together for, to harness innovation for social good, then reducing inequalities, because it doesn't matter if a country is becoming more wealthy if the people at the bottom aren't experiencing any of those gains, and the rich are becoming richer while the poor are becoming poorer. Also sustainable cities and communities, recognizing that we can develop while still protecting the environment. And responsible consumption, climate action, these all speak to a kind of tremendously impressive agreement between countries to actually try and protect the world, which, as you know, climate resilience is a big issue. So life below water and life on land speak to protecting animals on land and in the sea. And then these final two are important and really underpin progress in all of the other sustainable development goals. So peace, justice, and strong institutions speaks to the need to have democratic societies and to include people's voices within democratic societies. And then partnership speaks to some of the things we're talking about today, which is the need to bring people to the table. So there's no way that all of these tremendously ambitious things can be delivered without working across all sectors, and that's where we come in. So underpinning these 17 goals, there are around 200 indicators, and the attempt is to measure progress year on year, country on country, to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. And that's really where data comes in. We need to have a better appreciation of whether we're actually making progress, and we need to harness innovation to actually achieve all of these goals. Otherwise, we're essentially investing money in things and having no idea whether it's working or not. So just to explain a little as background how we work, we have a number of governments that we work with. There are currently 5 in Africa and several in Asia and Latin America, where we work deeply with them to really put in place the building blocks of data for sustainable development. So that encompasses everything from statistics and the traditional measuring of populations and progress, through to innovative methods, the satellite data that Elise referred to earlier, and kind of looking at how new sources of data can be used as proxies for development. So we work with them to identify what's working, and then we share the learnings from that with other countries, and then we bring in expertise from all of those different sectors and the different partners. So this is really a unique partnership in that it's very demand-led. It's based on not coming up with a solution and then trying to see who can use it, but asking countries, what do you need in order to make progress, going and finding it, bringing in the best minds, and we like to say that we're applying the world's best solutions to the world's worst problems. So the Data Festival, just to end that point, was bringing everybody together in the room to discuss some of those things and make sure that we really are learning the best from all of those different organizations across all of those different countries. So the Inclusive Data Charter is a project that we launched in July, and it specifically speaks to data as an issue of social justice. So many people in this world, they're born, they live their lives, they die without ever having been recorded in any data. And we think that that's a tremendous shame, because it means that they are unlikely to receive any kind of social benefits, healthcare, education, their births aren't registered. So we hope to help countries capture their populations more effectively and help charities and others sort of serve different populations, so that we're sort of making the invisible visible. And in doing so, there's a kind of transparency dimension to make sure that these people aren't overlooked. So the sorts of people I'm talking about are women tend to be overlooked in data, different age groups, the elderly, people who live in very rural populations, those with disabilities, ethnic minorities, indigenous populations, and anyone who would be typically marginalized in society. So we have 10 different organizations working with us on this, and a number of governments, and they're focusing on different elements of that inclusion. So, for example, Sightsavers is an organization that is focusing on disability data and how we can better capture people within that in order to help them. Data2X focuses on gender, and UNFPA, which is the UN Agency for Population, is looking at people in remote locations and how we can use geospatial sources to capture their presence. So each organization has a different charter, and then they share the results of those and encourage other people to join that movement. Another data solution for change is the Africa Regional Data Cube, and I think I'll pause now to show you a video that says a little bit more about that. Thanks.
We're very excited about the new African Regional Data Cube. It brings this new data technology to 5 different countries in Africa that typically are not users of satellite data. And they're going to have this chance now to look at the Earth from totally new ways and to use it for sustainable development goals.
Initially, data was being siloed as a scientific tool, but what I've learned is data actually is an everyday thing that should inform, transform, and even inform how we do our daily business, from our own livelihood to environment and to policy and to how we engage as networks with globally and locally.
We have all the data we want now, but that's actually a bit of a problem. It's no longer, how do I get the data and I can't buy it? It's now, I've got so much data, how do I use it? If we can get this analysis-ready data in a form that these countries can use it rapidly and effectively, we've removed a lot of that burden, because most of the problem they had in the past was just pulling the data together and making it useful.
How much research is being blocked by the fact that people just can't access the data that they're trying to get?
In the absence of data, it truly becomes very difficult for us and as a developing country to really effectively plan. And I think the government has made a deliberate decision to really leverage innovation, leverage ICT to make data more readily available to support our planning processes.
Earth observations, both from satellites as well as from ground-based stations, in situ data and data from airborne sensors can help when combined with other sources of data such as national statistics, administrative data and other types of data sources including citizen science, crowdsourced data, can really help countries monitor and understand how to better monitor and achieve progress towards sustainable development in a consistent, cost-effective and timely manner.
Through the global partnership, you're at the forefront of the innovation and new ideas that will bring the promise of the data revolution to bear on the most critical problems of our time and on our efforts to achieve the SDGs. I congratulate your progress so far. I'm particularly excited to see the launch this week of the Africa Regional Data Cube, which aims to increase agricultural productivity and provide jobs for young people.
We are especially pleased that with the launch of the African Regional Data Cube, that will begin to make the benefits of data revolution more real and tangible to data communities who have often been left behind. This is a big step towards the destination of who we want to be in 2030.
Hi there. So as you see from that video, it's a tremendously exciting project, and it brings together a number of different organizations. So 5 countries, as it says here on the slide, along with NASA, who are sharing the data, GEO and others, and institutionally housed at a university in Kenya, which is great, so that we're building expertise within the country and within the region. And the thing about the Africa Regional Data Cube is that a number of different countries are beginning to practice this open data cube innovation, which is really about putting in place the infrastructure to access this information easily. And then some of the different subjects that they're interested in surfacing are agriculture and food security, deforestation, poverty mapping, and also the detection of illegal human activities, so illegal mining, logging, that sort of stuff. So we're really expanding our knowledge on the international stage about how we can leverage this data to achieve those sustainable development goals at a scale that we really haven't seen before. And then one of the areas that we're learning about together is how this can be integrated with different great data on the ground. So statistics and mapping and in some cases citizen-generated data. So this is really, we're at the beginning of a really exciting journey, and we think that this will be a massive help in helping us achieve the Sustainable Development Goals.
So with that, thank you, Jenny. Come together and join the movement. So for Data Solutions for Change, if you are an eligible nonprofit organization and would like to learn more and apply, please visit cloud.google.com/data-solutions-for-change. And if you are a student at the university level, so again, college or graduate level, and you are actively enrolled and would like to learn more and submit your data story, please visit cloud.google.com/visualize-2030.
And for the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, if you work for an organization that you think could get involved in this, as a data producer, as a data user, as an NGO, or anyone interested in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, get in touch. We're a very open house, and we're happy to talk to you and explore what is possible no matter where you are in the world. Thank you.
Absolutely. So that's a wrap. Thank you all for your time today, and we will be cutting to a live Q&A now, and we'll be back shortly. Hello, we're back with questions from the audience. So to begin, the first question is, so one of the SDGs is global partnerships. Mm-hmm. Was GPSDD founded in order to address that goal specifically? Are there other organizations whose mission is to address one or more of the Sustainable Development Goals?
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's a great question. So there are numerous, hundreds and hundreds of organizations that are created in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, or that predominantly look to work towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And different UN agencies have different interests. So at the moment I'm working with the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Food Programme, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development on data connected to sustainable agriculture. So there's a whole kind of ecosystem of people there. And then when you look at sort of UNICEF and other agencies, they're very interested in health, of course, in children and them having education. So there really is a huge ecosystem, and around each of those Sustainable Development Goals you have a very vast number of organizations sort of working together on partnerships to achieve that. So, and there's also a number of organizations that are focused on specific partnerships in order to achieve that. So there are some that are focused specifically on private sector and public sector innovation. There are some that are focused on education partnerships and so forth. What marks us out is really the sole focus on data and how it can be leveraged to measure and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. and really the fact that we're a sort of a neutral convener in this space. So I think I mentioned earlier that there are sort of different constituencies within this community. Some people are very interested in transparency, open data, accountability. Some people are interested in new sources of data and how they can be leveraged for social good. Some people's focus is primarily statistics. Some people are interested in citizen-generated data and how people speak about their own reality, and then there's everything in between. So we really kind of look to span those organizations. We have different working groups that focus on different elements, and then we bring together different people to sort of get the best knowledge out of our groups and to further our common goals.
Great. So the next question is, what is the relationship between the Millennium Development Goals and the SDGs? How is success measured, and how are organizations approaching the SDGs differently today?
That's a really great question as well. The Millennium Development Goals, which ran until 2015, were tremendously important and a great endeavor, but as I mentioned earlier, they weren't as comprehensive as the Sustainable Development Goals. And really the process through which countries agreed on their common goals for the Sustainable Development Goals, they really looked at some of those gaps, predominantly gaps around climate resilience, which has sort of risen on the agenda as we're seeing more extreme weather. That was captured a lot more. Also, the Sustainable Development Goals were decided not by what we're able to measure necessarily, but by the ambition of what we need to achieve, and then looking at the gap between what we currently have and where we can be. So the idea was to sort of future-proof them for the kind of emergent technologies and innovation. And as you saw with some of those projects like the Africa Regional Data Cube, our kind of knowledge and awareness of how we can leverage this technology is coming on in leaps and bounds. So there's been an enormous exercise. Currently, we don't have sustainable data for 2/3 of the SDG indicators, which is really surprising and, you know, a difficult situation. So essentially, we need to look at those missing 2/3, look at how we can capture them, and look at how we can be creative in how we do that so that we can really kind of superpower progress.
And as a follow-up question to that, is the GPSDD organization, one of your partners, actually working to address that informational gap?
Yeah, there's been several mapping exercises that have been done by the UN system, especially the UN Statistics Department. And they identify some of those gaps, and then we work with our partners to try and kind of fill some of those gaps, and then also look at the kind of potential beyond what is just traditionally needed for monitoring. So there's a big exercise underway from numerous different partners to kind of do the monitoring, and one of the mechanisms for that is having countries stand on the world stage at the high-level political forum and kind of present on the progress that they're making and how they're measuring it. And some countries are more advanced in that and are more proud of their investment in doing that. And then we seek to encourage others to do the same. So there's a process of governments coming together and sharing that knowledge and supporting each other to be more effective in measuring progress.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, how can data for development be more inclusive? How do projects like the Inclusive Data Charter plan to address this?
I think this is a really interesting question because inclusion of different groups, this is one area where we're making a lot of progress, and sort of a lot of it is to do with norms and people's attitudes about what's acceptable in society. But essentially, there are different reasons that people are sort of invisible to the system. One is a lack of capacity and a lack of money to capture information about their lives. In some cases, it's a little convenient to not have information about people, either because you don't want to spend money to improve their circumstances, or in some cases, sadly, different groups have reason to hide, you know, so groups that fear persecution or groups that aren't treated well within their countries are not necessarily wanting to be captured. So this is an area that there's a sort of technical component, there's a policy component, and there's a sort of social justice and advocacy component. So we're interested in all of those different areas, and we're working at different levels with a number of different partners to kind of push the idea that everybody has a right to be included in data, and everybody should have a right to benefit from social progress. So what we don't want to see is countries getting better, but people who are the most disadvantaged being left behind. The Sustainable Development Goals call for the most disadvantaged in society to be helped first. But of course, if we don't know who those people are, how can we help them? So we're very keen to see that happen. And the Inclusive Data Charter underpins that from an advocacy and from a technical perspective.
Absolutely. So the next question is, what are some of the challenges that nonprofits face around advanced cloud computing? So I can start with that one.
Great, thank you.
So as I mentioned before, two of the challenges that we've identified that nonprofits faced are, well, one, financial, and two, technical. Financial being around the budget, the resources to finance a short-term data analytics project, medium-term, long-term, really any data analytics project. Because once you get past the storage point and you start querying and developing custom models with machine learning, it can get a little costly in the long term for nonprofit organizations. So, addressing that financial barrier is very important, especially at the get-go, because a program like Data Solutions for Change can actually help nonprofits create a proof point. Kind of like a pitch or demonstrative proposal that then can rally additional support and help to get that additional support for budget and financial resources. I'd say on the other side of things is the technical expertise. So do they have experience working with data analytics? Increasingly more nonprofits are looking to get involved. For all the reasons that Jenny mentioned before around data for development and opportunities to close informational gaps. So the question is there someone actually embedded within the nonprofit team that is a data scientist or has some knowledge of SQL? And also actually connects to the financial challenge too, because actually having a fully staffed data scientist, never mind a data science team, can be also costly. So, again, making resources available for, self-training or even, mentorship. Also looking at organizations, across different disciplines as well to see, if one nonprofit, for example, has the financial resources, they've secured the budget, maybe they can partner with another organization that does have a data scientist and can work together on a collaborative project. Which is actually another area too that I'd say is that I've heard from nonprofits that can be an area, a challenge area for them. And that is working effectively with other nonprofit organizations and kind of coming together when they have shared goals, because each organization is motivated by their own mission and their own particular KPIs, but to come together and kind of come to those KPIs together, I think would further their mission holistically and also help to achieve these goals at scale. Yeah. Anything that you'd like to add from
Yeah,
GPSDD?
I think I'd like to add, we talk a lot in our organization about interoperability and how to make things work together. I think there's a sort of sense of interoperable people are needed here as well. Too often you have people who have technical skills, but they're not really integrated into wider teams, and they don't necessarily know how to work across different organizations. So encouraging that sort of dialogue, and for the people with technical expertise to be better about talking about these issues and identifying problems, and the people who don't have it to be better at kind of understanding what is needed, even if they can't technically implement it, is really important. So I think sort of advice, technical support, knowing that there's somebody to ask for help when you need it is really important. It's not that everybody has to become a coder, it's that people need to know who to ask and when.
Absolutely. Yeah, I also add that, to Jenny's point too, relationship building is really important. At the Data for Development Festival, that was an amazing experience, which brought together many organizations, many people from across the world, working across several disciplines. So it was great just to have everyone in the room, learn more about their work, and also just kick off conversations on how we can, work better together. So I met a lot of people there. I attended personally. It was a great experience, as I mentioned before. Also very much looking forward to the UN World Data Forum. Another great opportunity to, again, bring a variety of different people together from different disciplines and from various countries across the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the last question that we have here is, what kind of expertise do you need to get involved with Data for Good? I think that this is an interesting question because there's so many, also to Jenny's point on interoperability, there's so many different skill sets that can contribute to this movement and to this work. So for me, I personally don't have a technical background, but I would say that critical thinking is something that is supremely important, and problem-solving abilities as well. Looking holistically, at a problem, looking at the quote-unquote big picture, but then also willing to dive a little bit deeper into the details that are captured by data. And also I'd add storytelling is important. So before I mentioned data visualization, Visualize 2030, and also the importance of being able to develop these custom reports. It's not just for the sake of developing reports, it's about telling a particularly persuasive story and to onboard stakeholders or other partners, or actually make an effective pitch, why we need to focus on this particular area versus another. So again, implementing these data-driven decisions with an eye towards other skill sets, again, like along the lines of storytelling.
Yep, I think that's absolutely true. One of the problems of this area is that data is complex, technology is complex. It confuses people, whereas kind of we need to give vaccinations to a child is easy to understand, we need to feed people is easy to understand. So there's a challenge to us to communicate why this matters, but in terms of people interested to get involved, there are so many ways, and there are a number of different organizations that allow you to kind of donate your time without needing to be physically in the space, to do things like playing games that help identify malaria through looking at different sort of sequences, to mapping different areas. One of the big problems is that there are whole parts of the world that aren't mapped and could do with being, better captured. So you can, if you only have a few hours a week and you're interested in this, then there are many different ways to get involved.
Yeah, and to add opportunities, beyond this kind of like area of expertise question, there's also opportunities to participate in the Data for Good movement through Kaggle, and also just learn more about data science. So Kaggle, for those unfamiliar with the platform, is a community platform to actually problem solve together, to use their workbench solution of kernels to analyze data sets and actually show your work, so to speak, as you go through that analysis, and also be able to engage with other members who are participating on the platform. Kaggle also launched a series of Data Science for Good events. So if you are a data scientist or versioning data scientist, you can explore those challenges and kind of put your skills to work there too. Another organization that we have worked with in the past and actually presented a webinar with previously back in June or July is DataKind. So DataKind, they do a lot of great work. They have a large, last time I checked, like over 18,000 volunteers as part of their network, and they actually match pro bono data scientists, analysts, designers, et cetera, with mission-driven organizations that are facing a particular data analytics challenge. So I'd say that's another great way to get involved.
Absolutely.
And the partnership, of course.
Yes, the partnership is focused on organizations, so I would encourage anyone working institutionally who wants to get involved. But as I mentioned, many of our partners, so if you come to www.data4sdgs.org, then you can see all of our partners, and a number of them focus on individuals and how they can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time today. It was great to have this opportunity to have Jenny be present and share the work that she's doing with the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, and also touch on the initiatives that we launched recently. Again, those are Data Solutions for Change for nonprofits, and Visualize 2030, a data storytelling contest for students at the higher ed level. So with that, stay tuned for the next session, and continue to keep up with Cloud OnAir webinars. Thank you.
Thank you.